Royal Enfield's famous motto still resonates now with classic bike enthusiasts and newcomers to the brand alike. The video's called The Good, The Bad and The Ugly, and in that movie Clint Eastwood said, "Every gun makes its own tune." Well, the same can be said for bikes. So what tune does the Royal Enfield Interceptor make? I'm going to give you my honest opinions on the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. The good, the bad, and yes, the ugly. So let's get to it. The Interceptor is a 650 twin single overhead cam air and oil cooled engine. This particular bike, which is my bike, is a 22 model, so it's Euro 5. Royal Enfield claims 47 brake horsepower at about 7,000 RPM and puts out its max torque of 52 Newton meters at around 4,000 RPM. What this creates is an engine that, while fairly low powered, has got plenty of go throughout the rev range and really is a hoot to ride, whether you're just nipping around town or pushing on a bit on both A or B roads, and it's even capable of doing a little bit of motorway miles as well. For me, for what it is, we've got plenty of power here. I recently rode a Honda CB 650R, a bike which I've admired for a long time. I actually passed my test on the CB 650F, which is the same engine as many people will know. So that's an inline 4 650, and it has twice the cylinders, almost twice the power, and the reality is that I rode both of these bikes at exactly the same pace. I may have accelerated slightly quicker on the Honda, of course, the difference really being on the Honda, I probably did a few more risky overtakes, right? Overtakes that I shouldn't have been doing anyway. And that's the truth of it. If we exclude the lightweight category, the 125s and that sort of thing, 90% of riders will still ride at the same speed no matter the bike. I'm not saying there's no argument for high powered machines. I think there's still the thrill of high torque, fast acceleration, not to mention the simple fact that while you could ride the same pace on both bikes, you're going to stress a higher powered machine far less than you'll stress, a little 650 twin, that's for sure. But that being said, the 650 twin on the Interceptor feels like it really genuinely wants to be booted into oblivion and back, and once I finish running it in, I will gladly oblige. But for now, I'm taking it fairly easy, not slow by any means, and it's still providing me more enjoyment genuinely than any bike I have ridden to date. Let's move on and talk about build quality and reliability. Overall, we're dealing with a well-built machine here. For some reason, some of the bike snobs that I've met since I first hopped onto an Enfield expect these to be built to Chinese 125 quality. And in fact, before I even go on, can we just acknowledge the fact that Chinese 125 quality in itself has come such a long way in the past 5 or 6 years or so. The reality is, Royal Enfield have been building these bikes in India since the 50s. It has been built to a budget, but that's not always apparent. They've saved money in really smart places and spent it in even smarter ones. A well-designed and even better engineered chassis, simple, good-looking dash, a proper metal fuel tank with a nice paint finish on it, but saving money on things like these plastic mudguards, which while they are cheap and cheerful, they do the job and they look fine. By keeping it simple, Royal Enfield have clearly found the right places to save money in order to keep the price down on this machine, and in doing that, they've literally come in and they've stolen a market that 4 years ago they didn't even have a presence in. Brakes are adequate, fine, nothing more than that. Suspension's a point of contention if I'm being perfectly honest. For most riders it seems that it's perfectly adequate. I've seen countless debates on Enfield owner groups, Interceptor owner groups about the suspension, so I know I'm not alone in what I'm saying here. In my opinion, the suspension is lacking, and I think it's getting slightly worse over time as well. Strangely, it manages to feel both soft and stiff.
That's what she said!
That being said, it's okay. Am I willing to spend more on it right now? No, I'm going to live with it just now. I don't think it's terrible, but I do think that it's lacking. The Interceptor 650, while I have just said the suspension is lacking, still handles phenomenally. And in fact, it kind of makes the ride that little bit more exciting. A little bit more how I'd imagine riding a proper classic on primitive suspension from the glory days of British biking might feel. But I do want you to know that the best thing you can do is test ride it and see what you think for yourself, because plenty of people have said they have absolutely no issues with it at all. And like I said, as much as I am criticising it right now, it's not bad enough that I'm willing to spend any money on a suspension upgrade right now. So take from that what you will. What I will also say, the rear shocks with the gold kind of piggyback thing, which I have no idea if it's even doing anything, they don't do it for me. I don't think they look great. I think there are better looking suspension setups online, and whenever I do come to spending money on suspension, I'm excited to see how that improves the overall look of the rear end as well. That is completely an opinion, of course, but I'm going to give it a bad and an ugly for suspension. But clearly, look, this bike needs to be built to a budget. Now, as we said already, they've saved money in some places like the plastic mudguards, these cheap plastic chrome look indicators. By the way, all of which function perfectly well, and for most people in the market for this type of bike are absolutely fine. And in fact, for what they are, they look pretty good too. But we'll talk more about styling later. One place that I have noticed the cost savings has been in the electrical components. For me, namely, the relays. It's the only place actually that I've experienced any sort of issues with reliability. The bike ran great for the first 500 miles or so, and then I started to notice that the bike was losing power, it wasn't idling stable, and it cut out on me while riding a couple of times. Now this is, I wouldn't say a common issue, but other people do report it on some of the Enfield owner groups online. It happened to me twice, and then it really started to play funny buggers and refused to start on me as well, and that happened 3 or 4 times over the course of 2 days. Cheap relays, absolutely soaked in white grease, and when I say soaked, I mean literally dripping with the stuff. Easily fixed though, with some contact cleaner. I went through a whole tin of this stuff. If you wanted to, you could fit higher quality relays at a tenner a piece. For me, I've had no further issues since I cleaned the relays. If we're specifically talking about electrics, given my experience and the fact that I have seen quite a few other people online, both in the owners groups and on YouTube as well, I think if we're being perfectly honest, for electricals only, it would be fair to say bad. However, the issues that I had were easily remedied. I haven't heard of anyone having any sort of long-term issues. Most people can resolve these issues by cleaning or replacing the relays, which are cheap and easy. So I think while I'm saying bad, it's kind of reasonable. There are far more expensive bikes that you'll buy and experience far more serious electrical issues with. It does happen, it's just part and parcel with modern technology. And it's not something that affects every owner, so just keep that in mind when we're looking at this rating. However, that is electrical only. When it comes to overall build quality and reliability, I've been round the bike a few times and I've found there's nothing to complain about. That being said, there isn't a lot to brag about either. It's not a flash bike, but it doesn't claim to be. It is bloody clever though. For $6,000, you're getting modern reliability, arguably equal to any of its competitors. While the fit and finish probably isn't as premium as the offerings from Triumph or Kawasaki, you do need to look hard to spot that. Side by side to the naked eye, they look like equals. And the styling here, to me, is a little more authentic than its rivals as well. You're getting perfectly acceptable, decent build quality with a decent paint job and good overall finish. The dealer's report's good and it's still growing, parts are readily available online. For me, overall, when it comes to build quality and reliability, I think the Interceptor 650 is an absolute winner. Now let's move on and talk about styling. I am wasting your time and mine if I pretend that there's even a debate to be had here. Styling is a matter of opinion and taste, I get that, that is true. However, you're probably not here watching this video unless you're a fan of that classic bike look. And if you are, this bike is undeniably authentic and well styled. And while Honda tried to blend old and new with the Neo Cafe, a look which, by the way, I appreciate, Enfield keeps it classic. While Kawasaki put cheesy gold alloys on their Z900s, Enfield keeps it simple with basic spoked wheels. While Ducati and Yamaha are given modern LED lighting, cast swing arms, Enfield sticks with acceptable halogen bulbs and tubular swing arms, straight out of the 70s. In fact, Enfield have pretty much created something here in the Interceptor 650 with absolutely zero modern vibes at all. It might not be progressive, but it is authentic. And people love it. This bike turns heads wherever I take it and it draws people in like no bike I've ever seen. I mean, sure, any biker's used to having other bikers coming up for a chat about their bike. But with the Interceptor, I've had men, women, children and everything in between complimenting, commenting, questioning me about it. People want to come and tell you about how their dad had a Royal Enfield back in the 70s, or how their granddad rode one in the army. People of all sorts seem to have some connection, some knowledge of the heritage of the Royal Enfield brand, while others just come and say, nice bike, I love that colour. It's a real head turner, it's a real attention grabbing bike, and we all know that bikes are these real objects of desire. We want our bikes to be beautiful, we want our bikes to turn heads, we want our bikes to catch attention. From the right people, of course. And the Interceptor 650 absolutely does that. Another thing when it comes to styling, something that sets this apart from its competitors as well, is the topic of colour. Most manufacturers offer 2 or 3 colours in each model, but Royal Enfield offers the Interceptor 650 in 7 different paint schemes right now. And maybe that's because it's so easy to, because they've kept things so simple that the only splash of colour on this bike is the fuel tank. Another reason why that simplicity is so smart. In fact, if I really wanted to, I could go out and buy a fuel tank of every available colour for the Interceptor 650, and I could swap them out whenever I feel like it, and I could still spend less money than if I bought a brand new street twin. Now obviously, I'm not going to do that because I'd need to notify the DVSA every time that I change the colour, which would be a lot of paperwork and a pretty stupid form of self-abuse, but it does illustrate a very important point to me about the cost of this bike and just how great value it is. When it comes to styling, for me, the styling speaks for itself. It might be the easiest award of this review. However, of course, no bike is perfect, so I have a couple of notable uglies to throw in there as well. The rear and front mudguard extenders, while they are perfectly practical, they are ugly. The rear one was removed the minute the bike got in my shed. The front one I have kept on because the practicality for me outweighs the look, and it's not quite as noticeable because they switched to the matte black finish. It kind of blends in with the tyre a little bit better and your eyes aren't immediately drawn to it, so I've left it on there for practicality. The rear light unit is just asking for a decent tail tidy to be put on there. The thing is, it is period appropriate, which is absolutely fine, it's perfectly functional, but there's something about it which I can't quite put my finger on, to me just looks a bit ugly. And my final ugly when it comes to styling, again, even though overall I think this is a beautiful looking bike, is these silver parts here. So the mudguard, clamp, the headlight bracket. It seems to me like the accents here are either black or chrome, and these parts should have been black or chrome. Now I know what people are probably going to say, it's easy enough to paint those, and you're right, it absolutely is. I'm just being fair and saying that from my point of view, as they come from the factory, those are a bit ugly. Let's talk about value. With the Interceptor 650, we're talking about a bike that made Royal Enfield a sales leader in a market that they haven't even been mentioned in since the 60s. A middleweight, modern classic bike, A2 compatible, classic looks, modern reliability, all for $6 give or take. With 3 years unlimited warranty. A bike that, if you go gentle on the throttle, would easily return upwards of 70 miles to the gallon. And it's never likely to deliver less than 50 miles to the gallon, even if you were to abuse it. It's cheap to run, cheap to insure. The dealer servicing costs are reasonable, and they're on the lower end of the spectrum in comparison with the rest of this market segment. With a $6 price tag, when it comes to value, I don't think there's anything in this segment that even comes close. Yes, there's better bikes in the segment, but you're spending an extra $2 to get to those. And if we take the Street Twin as an example, I don't believe that Triumph is giving you an extra $2 worth of bike. I think Royal Enfield have very cleverly priced this bike, and given its appeal to new, experienced and returning riders, they probably have the broadest target customer base possible. For example, if you were downsizing, you could sell your 10-year-old Sport Tourer, buy an Interceptor 650 and still have change to buy the missus a new pair of shoes, probably. Maybe. Or have them both, which is what this bike is for another chunk of the market. A Sunday backroad beater for GS riders who like a departure from the big beefy beast now and then. And for folks who don't have cash in the bank to hand over, the $6 price tag means you can finance this bike for about £100 a month on hire purchase. And if I was 21 again, I could absolutely see myself getting my A2 licence, financing one of these as a commuter or a weekend toy, something to blast around the city on, stopping at the latest artisan coffee shop with my MacBook Pro to write my latest blog or my vegan sandals made from banana peels. You could finance, run, service and insure this bike for far less than a monthly car payment these days. Or even a monthly rail pass for that matter. It makes a lot of financial sense no matter how you cut it. And value is really where this bike absolutely shines. You're getting a lot of bike for your money. And there you have it. I've given you my take on the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. The good, the bad, and the ugly. There is a reason that this bike has outsold its competitors year on year since its release. The Interceptor 650 is undoubtedly a bike that offers tremendous value for money, unrivaled in its market space. Is it better than its rivals? Maybe not, but does that matter? In my opinion, no. It's fun, it's got good, usable, real-world power and performance, modern reliability, and undeniably authentic British classic styling, all at a reasonable price. The bike offers the thrills and joys of back to basics motorcycling, which appeals to a really broad audience. With the Interceptor, Royal Enfield offers a package that the likes of Honda, Triumph, Ducati, BMW, Suzuki, Yamaha simply cannot beat. Is it the best? No, but sales figures prove that it can beat the best. And that speaks volumes about this cracking modern classic. Thanks for watching, tell me what you think in the comments, and until next time, ride safe and have a good one.